All right, well, welcome everyone. So we have one more person joining. Just admit Stella before we begin. So my name is Larissa Shasko, and effective at our last general meeting, I am honored to serve as the new chair of the board of Enviro Collective. So this is actually the first general meeting that I have chaired. I want to thank you all for joining us on today for this special Earth Day meeting of Enviro Collective. And I want to begin today's meeting by acknowledging that although we are holding this meeting virtually, the physical location that we originally held these meetings at, and that we one day will soon meet again, is Treaty 4 territory. We must also understand that a land acknowledgement is empty if it is not accompanied by action. As a collective, we are committed to continuing to learn about and act on the knowledge that climate justice cannot be achieved without Indigenous justice. Today, as we celebrate Earth Day, we acknowledge that the original peoples of this land we call home had the wisdom that every day is Earth Day, and that humans are not separate from or dominant to nature, but rather are part of nature and ultimately governed by Mother Earth, a wisdom that has been lost by a Western culture where greed and capitalism are celebrated by the status quo instead of dismantled. I hope that we can all spend today's meeting imagining a better world for everyone to live in, where the health of all of us and the health of our environment comes first. Today, we are very excited to have Miriam Körner from For Peat's Sake, Ada Dechene from Fridays for Future Regina, Brahm Enslin, who is the Prairie Region Coordinator for the Delivering Community Power campaign, and Larry Kowalchuk, who represented over 20 groups from across Canada and Saskatchewan at the recent Supreme Court of Canada carbon pricing case. We're also going to have an open discussion about Saskatchewan's energy future. So first up, I would like to welcome Miriam to present. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm joining you from La Ronge, Saskatchewan, Treaty 6 and the traditional homeland of the Métis people and the Woodland Cree and sometimes Dene. I am part of a group that's called For Peat's Sake, and as Larissa was saying, we founded because we understood the need to protect the lands that are here that we still have, and that Indigenous leadership is really important, and the connection to the land. We live in the North, we're constantly learning from Indigenous leaders in the North, and very few people in the South really have an understanding what our realities in the North look like. So I wanted to start off with a very short 2-minute video clip, just to give a kind of a feel about the muskeg and our connection to the muskeg. If you want to play that.
Absolutely. I will just play that now. Oops. And actually, I guess I have to share my screen to do that. I've never played a video on Zoom before, so one moment.
We come from the land, we used to know her voice. The hymns of birdsong, chorus of a riverbank. Feel her heartbeat in our footsteps as we tread lightly on her skin. We used to know her signs, built into our design, a language we could all speak. Distant now, distracted somehow, caught up in this domesticated life. Her calls to come home have been quiet in the past. Now her patience, I fear, has worn thin. Come home, she calls through the seas, through the wind, rain, and snow. Come home, come home, come home. Don't worry, they say, we have time, don't be scared. Her calls land on deaf ears. My heart aches for my mother. as we continue to fail to protect what she's left in our hands until it's too late. Come home, I hear as I walk through the trees. I close my eyes, join my breath with the breeze. And I gently reply, please show me the way.
You're on mute, Miriam.
Thank you very much. This is just a short introduction of a 20-minute long video where we all then voice what we feel about the Muskeg and how we connect to the land. And this whole group started out because our Muskeg, the Muskeg you see in the background there, is threatened by a peat mining proposal. Peat mining is a form of strip mining, which will take away first all the trees and berry plants and the vegetation, the mosses, and then dig deep, sometimes up to 2 meters deep, and strip off all that land and to be used as peat in gardening. And peat really is a product. The peat has grown over thousands and thousands of years, and it only grows 1 millimeter per year. And peat really is a product that is not needed in gardening. The peat is most valuable as a carbon sink. And I think it's a knowledge that still not really has sunken in, that our peatlands and our boreal forest is the biggest and greatest carbon sink that we have. So destroying that is not gonna only affect Indigenous people's lifestyle who use that area traditionally for hunting, trapping, and gathering medicine. It's also gonna be releasing carbon and threatening our water systems that are connected with it. And Indigenous people have always had that knowledge. They call the Muskegs the kidney of Mother Earth. They clean our air and they clean our water. So this is a knowledge that science is just starting to catch up. And if you do your research, you'll see how important muskegs and peatlands are in the protection or in the carbon emission process. And so what is peat really used for is in gardening products to keep moisture in the soil. But it decomposes right away in the first year, and it releases all this carbon that is stored naturally in the peat. It releases it in your soil, in your garden, when you expose that to the air. There's a whole bunch of other hazards, and I won't go into detail, but what I really want you to be aware of is that the industry, the peat industry, has sold us the idea that we need peat. And if you go now to go in your garden centers and ask for peat-free soil, you will find out you will not find any. Or if there is, we might find one bag, and most people are not aware. And I've known that from experience, from Naranj and my own multi-store that has a little garden compartment, to Prince Albert, Canadian Tire. People, when we ask for peat-free soil, they do not know why, and they don't understand why it's important to not have peat in our soils. So, and I think that's why I'm really happy to be invited to be here tonight, because I really want you to urge into looking into it. You can follow our Facebook page called For Peat's Sake, especially the very first and very old posts have lots of information on the importance of boreal forest and peatlands particular as a carbon sink, or you can just type it into Google. There's tons of Canadian Geographic articles out there that you will find. But I also want you really to urge to be conscious about what you put into your gardens, because we're only gonna change that industry if we as consumer change. So we have to change ourselves first. And it's a simple change. You can just use compost in your gardens. It requires work. to do that. But it's better for your soil. There's no value, no nutritional value in peat at all. It is just that we were made believe that we need this for our soils. And just 2 days ago, the Lac La Ronge Indian Band came out with the official statement that they're opposed to peat mining in Northern Saskatchewan for not just reasons of traditional hunting and gathering, but it also endangers the woodland caribou, which are endangered species, and they use muskegs for their calving grounds, and also it's the habitat for their food source. And carbon emissions is also one of why you in Regina should be concerned, because if you're taking out all that and releasing that carbon in the north, it will come around and affect people in the south eventually as well. So the Lac La Ronge Indian Band has made an official statement. They're opposed. So are other First Nations and Métis in the area. And Lambert, this is the company that proposed the peat mine, has responded that, if we just keep engaging, we can all mitigate these issues in a very patronizing way. They have made clear that the Lac La Ronge Indian just hasn't looked deeply enough into it. And if they just keep talking with industry, they find a way to make them all happy about this great opportunity in our area, which will provide 25 seasonal jobs where maybe some locals will be hired. So there's really no gain for us in this. And yeah, I think that's probably my 10 minutes here that I had. And if you have quick questions, please go ahead for a couple minutes, and I hand it back over to Larissa and Amy.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So I just am going to quickly, Larry has to, we need to get Larry admitted to the meeting. So I'm going to pass this to Rob to moderate questions, if you can, Rob, for a moment, while I briefly step away from my computer. Thank you so much, Miriam. That was really, really informative and a lot that I really didn't know. So thank you, and I will be right back.
Well, I'm Rob, one of the board members with Enviro Collective, and since I have you now, I'm going to put in a commercial. We're funded through donations. We don't have any grant funding, and so one of the things that we reach out and ask people is that next time you're thinking of going to Sarcan, punch in Enviro Collective and make your donation towards our organization. We really appreciate it. And the funds are used for simply stuff like this, buying a Zoom membership so we can host these type of meetings. And so we've really appreciated already the donations we've got from Sarcan. So again, thank you all for doing that. Anyways, our next speaker, if I remember.
Rob, maybe, do you mind? I just wanted to say something, and maybe others had a question or
okay.
To say as well for Miriam. Thank you, Miriam, for presenting. It's such an important topic. I've only recently become aware of the issues with peat. And something that I've used, and I'm sure others here have as well, but in case anyone hasn't, is a simple leaf pile. I rake up all my leaves into one ginormous pile. It's higher than I am, mind you, I'm small. And then by the spring, it's shrunken down, and over the years, it builds up a very, very rich mycorrhizome type of mulch that adds so many nutrients to the soil and does effectively a lot of what peat moss can do as well. So if you have the space in your yard, I mean, it's the easiest thing you can do with your leaves. It's a lot easier than bagging them. And the insects love to hide in there as well over the winter. So it's great.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important to really be aware of what are the alternatives. Like some say coconut from coconuts, and it's being used, but then people say, well, there's a big carbon emission with that being shipped to here as well. I agree with that, but the carbon emission for the shipment of this waste product, it's from coconuts, is not nearly as high as the carbon released from peatlands being destroyed and harvested. And plus, they're also putting us a danger in the north for forest fires, because dried peatlands are a really, really high fire risk. And even at Gardening News Sask, they had a post on their website, and they said, you know, best thing for your seedling is using peat. And there was tons of people, not from our group, I swear, commenting, you know, what about the carbon emissions of peat, and what about the harvesting of peat and the strip mining and all that? And the USask Garden replied that this is a renewable resource. We have plenty of it, and there's not to worry about. It's not like in the UK. And so this heated discussion started at Gardening USask, and eventually that took the post down because they said they're going to look into it. So that's what we need, even leading places like the University of Saskatoon, they still need to learn about the process, what is really behind and the impact they have. Like it's happening here, right, in our province in the north, and it's gonna get sold mainly in the States to big agricultural centers, but it's also happening right here. So, be aware of it. Where you buy your potting plants, always ask, do you use peat-free? And probably they don't, but if you keep asking, eventually it will change.
Yeah, good point. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to throw in anything, but I have one more thought, and you might have said this, I'm sorry, I was distracted by other issues. A lot of soil sold as transplant or seedling soil actually has peat moss mixed in with it. So it's always wise to look at the packaging of soils you're buying and make sure you avoid this if you want to. I'm done.
Yeah, and if it says organic, that doesn't mean it doesn't have peat. Industry claims the peat is organic, which it is because it is a natural product from our forests and from the muskegs, but it is very environmentally friendly. So yeah, I could talk on for hours, but I'll let you go. And
thank you so much, Miriam. We're really, really grateful that you were here to present on this. And yes, it's really a good note to all of us to actually act on this and make those wise decisions and ask as consumers to use that power that we do have. So we're still just trying to sort out some technical issues so that Larry can join us for our conversation and the next portion of our meeting. So I just want to thank you again, Miriam, for being here today, and of course, still join the rest of our meeting and join in discussion. We hope that you will. So as we're just trying to sort out getting Larry into the meeting, as always, technical difficulties. That's the era that we're in. Can we just actually go around the Zoom room and do brief introductions? Just if you could very briefly unmute your microphone and tell us your name, your organization, if relevant, and one word that sums up and that describes how you want our future to be. So very broad, but one word. So let's go ahead and we will start with, I'm just going to put us into gallery view and I will just call someone out. So actually, why don't we go ahead and start with Miriam, since we already have heard from her, but let's hear your word.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, my name is Miriam. I'm originally from Germany. I live in La Ronge, and one word, pollution free.
Great. Next, Ada.
I'm Ada. I'm from Fridays for Future Regina, and I think the future should be not dystopian.
Nice. And Paul is also there. I don't know if Paul, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, hi, I'm Paul. I'm with the Enviro Collective Board, and yeah, not dystopian with Ada.
Great. Brahm.
You said Rob or Ron?
Brahm.
Brahm, sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brahm Enslin. I'm with CUPW, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers from Saskatoon here, and I want to see the future healthy for all of us.
Great. Thank you. Joanne.
You're here.
Oh,
there we go. That's better. Yeah, my name is Joanne Havelock, and I'm with
a lot of groups. The two most environmentally related are permaculture, and then also the public pastures, public interest, which is working to preserve native grasslands. That's a really hard thing to think of one word, but I would say diverse, so we keep our diversity in our landscape.
Great, thank you. Russell.
So I'm Russell, I'm in Regina. I guess I'm unaffiliated. And my one word would be healing, for the future to be healing with whatever happens, that we can heal what we can.
Great, thank you. Ken.
Hi there, it's Ken McHaggard in Regina. My one word, some people have already taken my word already, so I'll throw another one out there. Just how about utopian?
Thank you. Sheila.
Hi, I'm Sheila, and I'm part of a newly formed advocacy group of retired teachers. And I have to have 3 words for my grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great 3 words. And Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Snyder. I'm also on the Enviro Collective board, and I also volunteer with a couple other groups such as For Our Kids. So Sheila, if we haven't bumped into each other yet, I'll paste that name into our chat box. You might want to look into it. Sorry, that's many words. My word, alive.
Wonderful. Florence.
Yeah, I'm Florence Stratton. I'm a community peace and justice activist, and my one word is justice.
Great, that was going to be my word. That's a good word. Kelly, if you can.
I have my son doing the videoing. My name is Kelly Nigrich. I'm with CUPW, a huge supporter of the Delivering Community Power campaign that Brahm will speak to. And it's actually my oldest son, Kai, came up with the word livable.
Great. Thank you. And Larry.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Oh, sorry, I should give you instructions. You just joined us mid-introductions. We're doing one word about what we want to see our future like.
One word. Beautiful.
That's a great word. Thank you, Larry, and welcome. We're really happy that we were waiting for you. We did Miriam's presentation, and now we're moving into the next phase. But we recorded it, so you can still see it later. So great that you were able to get in. We apologize for the technical difficulties. So next, Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob Deglau. I'm with the board, and I'm also one of my portfolios with the Enviro Collective is setting up the Regina Climate Hub, which is we'll use volunteers to engage the local municipality with best practices and the National Climate League standings, which is part of the climate reality. My word is sustainability.
Great, thanks. Next up, Mac.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mac, and been involved just starting in Regina and some of the youth movements around the climate strikes. And my one word would have to be unify.
Awesome, great. Next, Hannah. You're on mute.
I'm Hannah. This is my first meeting. I'm just finishing up my master's in environmental studies and thought this group was interesting. And my word would be healthy also.
Awesome, welcome. Let's see, Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla Ballman. I hope you can hear me. And I guess the project that I'm working on right now is as a volunteer butterfly way ranger with the David Suzuki Foundation. So what we're doing is working with people who would like to incorporate native plants in their landscaping to help provide food sources and habitat for local endangered species of pollinators and birds. And I did get a little micro grant, so I actually have some free plants to help people do that. So if that sounds good to you, let me know. My word, there were so many good ones that I was gonna use, but I guess right now it'll be thriving, but in a very holistic sense, in an interconnected sense, in a diverse sense, all the words I was gonna use.
Great. Thank you, Carla. Sorry, I just handed my 4-year-old my phone to distract her. And I think we haven't heard yet from Stella.
Hi, I'm Stella. I'm with Fridays for Future, and my word is good.
Thanks, Stella. Welcome. And Susan.
Sorry, took a while to get off mute there. And I'm having camera issues, so no camera, and apologies for that. But Susan Sutherland, no affiliation, just sitting in as an interested observer. I'm here with Marvin Dick, and my one word is sustainable, and I think Marvin chose healthy.
Wonderful, welcome. Now, did I miss anyone? Sometimes the videos move around as cameras are turned on and off. So hopefully, I think I got everyone. And myself, I already introduced myself, but just for anyone who hadn't yet joined, I am Larissa Shasko. I am the new chair of the board of Enviro Collective. I'm also a PhD candidate at Johnson Shoihama Graduate School of Public Policy, where I do climate change and energy policy research and public engagement research. And my one word, oh my gosh, going last is really, really hard. How about fun? Let's go with that. Okay, now let's go next into our next topic for this meeting, which is an open conversation about Saskatchewan's energy future. And we wanted to have this meeting with this conversation in response to the Supreme Court of Canada's decision on the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act case. But we also recognize that with it being Earth Day, this is a really important day for us to talk about positive change and imagining a better world. So the discussion today will start with brief presentations from a few speakers. Actually, well, two in particular. We have Ada Dechene here from Fridays for Future Regina. So she will kick us off with the conversation, followed by Brahm Enslin from the Delivering Community Power campaign. And Larry Kowalchuk is also here to answer questions. So, and he represented over 20 groups at the recent Supreme Court case from across Saskatchewan and Canada. So he's here to help answer some more of those in-depth questions for any of us that may not have had time to read the actual decision. So we're going to start first off with Ada. So thank you so much for being here today.
Hey. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Fridays for Future Regina and what we intend to do. We are currently launching an initiative to try to get people to go around Regina in eco-friendly manners and show what's good and what's bad. Before the lockdown, we were doing strikes quite frequently, and we are trying to petition the Saskatchewan government to do anything about climate change. But in recent times, it's become really obvious that they're probably not going to do a lot. So we've decided we're going to try to talk to the city council more, and we're going to try to build awareness for ways that it's hard to be environmentally aware and environmentally friendly in Regina.
Wonderful, thank you, Ada. And we will come back to, actually, you know what, we can go straight into a couple of quick questions if anyone has questions in particular about the campaign. I guess, let's see, if I have a question, I know a little bit more about it than others here might, but I guess one question would be, how can, if I have a youth who is here, how can she get involved?
Well, it kind of depends on you. We're giving like rough suggestions, but really it's up to every person because we can't micromanage everyone. But there are ways we have to get in touch with us. We have an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, and an email, which none of them I remember. But yeah, we have posters that are up somewhere again. I could just, what? Facebook. They're on Facebook. There are posters that have other information, ways to get in contact with us, and all of that.
Wonderful. And I can also post the poster as a PDF directly into the chat for everyone too, because I believe I have it on my computer. So yes, and I know too, I've seen one of the posters that is one that kids can color in. I say kids, but I mean adults too. We can also color it. So, thank you. Does anyone else have a quick question for Ada? And I guess actually, if you do, just go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can use the button to raise your hand. But either or.
Can you hear me, Ada?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, one of the committees at City Council made a move towards implementing, I mean, it's still at some committee stage, not at City Council yet, to implementing some kind of control of vehicle idling. So I thought that was good news. And maybe when it actually comes before City Council, some folks from Friday for Futures would want to come and speak in favor. Anyways, just a suggestion.
We'll definitely keep that in mind.
I'm also mentioning that a local high school in Orange started a petition against peat mining, and it was an online petition that collected 20,000 signatures. But the legislature doesn't accept the online signatures. So we are again trying to get paper signatures now. And you were mentioning that you were doing petitions as well. What kind of petitions have you done?
I more meant petition, like we went and did the school strikes. We didn't actually do any petitions. We had just started a year ago, and we hadn't really gone to the point where we had decided whether or not we wanted to do petitions.
Thank you so much, Ada. I know one of the things that really excites me about this campaign is just how useful it is from a policy-making perspective to actually have youth who are here on the ground in Regina and others that who know and understand how hard it is to get around our city without a vehicle, and that needs to change. I think this is a really valuable campaign for our city council. So thank you so much to Fridays for Future Regina for taking this amazing initiative. I remember that you were planning to have another meeting, a general meeting with Fridays for Future Regina that will provide more information, so people can stay tuned to that. But I will go ahead and pop the poster in the chat. Is there anything else, Ada, that you want to add to just close up your introduction here to our conversation?
No, I don't think so.
Could I just say one more thing to Ada? The group, what's it called? Regina Citizens Public Transit Coalition. That group has a document on better transit, and I could certainly send it to you. I don't know, I probably don't have it. Your dad probably has my email. Anyways, if you email me, I can send you this document. You might find it useful.
Okay, we will do that.
Okay, thanks.
I just noticed that we've had someone else join our meeting. I think, I don't believe that Marv has introduced themselves. Marv, we've already gone through introductions, but would you mind just telling us your interest in this meeting tonight?
Yeah, actually, I was we're here with Susan Sutherland, and I'd already submitted my answer there. I just joined on my iPad, that's all.
Got it. Okay. Just
No problem.
we're just checking in. Frankly, we're trying to be vigilant about who's in the meeting so we avoid any problems. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Yes, thanks, Amy. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ada, and please also join in the conversation because we definitely want to, we really value having a youth perspective here too, as we talk about Saskatchewan's energy future, because ultimately that is what it's all about. It has to be based on the needs of our youngest citizens, so that we build the type of future and energy future here in the province that we want and that works for all of us. So next up, we are going to move over to Brahm now, who is, oh, actually, sorry, go ahead, Amy.
I just noticed that that Carla's had her hand up. Sorry.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, I just got the little notification too. Carla, please go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to say to Ada and everybody who's involved with Fridays for Future that those rallies last year just gave me so much life and so much hope. And it was so sad that right when things were getting so big, bigger than I'd ever seen in Regina, that we had lockdown. But I think they had such a huge impact. And I just wanted to congratulate you guys and say, keep up the good work. You're definitely having you're making a huge impression. And I'm so, so, so proud to support anything that you guys are doing in the future, because yeah, I've never seen anything like it. It made me so happy. I just want to congratulate you, give you all the high fives and virtual hugs, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You know what, I want to add on to that. I'll tell you, Ada, I started with the Enviro Collective because I came out to Fridays for Future rally at the Ledge, and that's how I got hooked into this. Thanks, you guys.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely echo both Carla and Robin. Thank you for saying that too. That's actually also how I first got involved with Enviro Collective. It was helping to, in the background of trying to be a support for helping to make the climate strikes a reality. But like, my gosh, they were inspirational, and I know that they'll happen again. And I know how that Fridays for Future Regina right now is doing really amazing work to get ready for when we can all be together again. And I think this Easy Breezy Bike Challenge is a great thing to do in the meantime that is really going to make a difference too. So thank you. Yes. And Mac is here also from Fridays for Future Regina. So yes, thank you. Thank you both. All right, well, let's move over to Brahm. Now, Brahm, do you need to be able to share your screen?
Oh, I just have I'll just run it through. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything like that.
Totally fine. Perfect.
Take 5 to 7 minutes just of your time.
Wonderful.
Okay, so thank you so much, Larissa. Hello, members of the Enviro Collective. I'm honored to be able to present to you today. My name is Brahm Enslin, and I'm the Delivering Community Power Campaign Coordinator for the Prairie Region with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. First of all, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting to you from the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 6 territory, which are the traditional territories of numerous First Nations, including Cree, Dene, Nakota, Saulteaux, and Ojibwe in the homeland of the Métis Nation, otherwise known as Saskatoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the Enviro Collective on the issue of reimagining Canada Post and expanding postal services. We have been putting together an ambitious and environmentally sustainable plan to reimagine the post office along the lines of a just transition and offer some solutions that would benefit not only the post office, but all communities and people living in Canada and the global community alike. It has a few pillars, but the campaign generally has two streams: new services offered equitably for all communities to benefit, and transforming our post office with green technologies and jobs. Here's a summary of what our campaign is all about. Delivering community power. Reimagine Canada Post with new services to support every community. Imagine our post office doing so while becoming a leader in environmental sustainability and helping Canada achieve its promises for global climate goals. Well into the 21st century, Canada Post could be doing much more than just handling letters and parcels. Imagine the post office becoming a local community hub that offers members of all communities the possibility of accessing services such as broadband internet, electric vehicle charging stations, postal banking, new delivery options, and check-in services for those with mobility issues, such as seniors. Imagine the post office retrofitting its buildings and fleet of vehicles with sustainable energy sources and zero-emission vehicles. While energy producers and vehicle manufacturers are moving away from fossil fuel-based energy sources, and while our government is promising to address climate change, it is only right that our public post office do the same. There are some problems that communities in Canada are facing that we would like to see addressed through reimagining the post office. Currently, there are over 1,200 communities that have post offices, but no banks or credit unions, and only 54 out of 615 Indigenous communities are served by local bank branches. The post office could provide postal banking services in all corners of the country while combating the predatory lending practices of the larger financial institutions that have ignored many rural communities. This is not a new concept. Not only did Canada have a postal bank until 1968, but the UK, France, New Zealand, Brazil, and Italy all have successful postal banking services. Only 45% of rural residents have access to high-speed internet, which amounts to roughly 3.4 million Canadians and those that live within Canada that do not have access. High-speed internet has become an essential service, and it is akin to the electricity or the railroad of the 21st century, necessary to connect us all, whether that be farmers, students, or small business owners. The post office can provide high-speed internet access to communities in all corners of the country, regardless of size. Check-in services can be provided by our mail carriers who are in communities every day. Seniors and those with mobility issues are becoming increasingly hesitant to move into long-term care homes, and our plan can help members of our community stay in their homes safe for longer. Vehicle and energy manufacturers are steadily moving towards green technologies such as electric vehicles, and currently there's very little infrastructure in the prairies. There has been some implementation in the bigger cities, but almost none throughout the rural areas and in the north. The post office can provide charging stations for the public, but also its fleet. Congestion and pollution are problems in some of our bigger cities, and the post office can provide new final mile delivery services to help ease that congestion through the use of non-traditional delivery modes. So this is more than possible since the post office is a Crown Corporation, Canadians own the infrastructure and logistics network that includes over 6,300 physical locations in Canada's largest corporate fleet. As a country, we own almost double the physical locations than Tim Hortons coffee shops and have the network to provide these important new services to all parts of the country, which includes smaller communities that the larger corporations have ignored. The plan is win-win-win. It creates and sustains green jobs. It provides new services for people in all parts of the country, from small underserviced regions to large urban centers, and the post office will be profitable while being environmentally sustainable, which significantly helps our global community. We know it can work. France's postal bank made 1.1 billion euros in 2017. Many other countries are operating profitable postal banking systems. The new services we see the post office providing have not only been successes abroad, but in some cases in Canada itself through either local pilot projects or at some point in the past. With Canada Post owning the largest corporate fleet in all of Canada, greening the post office is necessary, and we at CUPW will continually push to make sure that Canada Post adopts these ideas to not only match the climate goals of the current government, but exceed them. We need your help to do the same. The Delivering Community Power campaign aligns directly with a just transition and aims to help provide equitable and sustainable services for communities and peoples that are typically marginalized, for example, First Nations communities, whom we believe must have a say in how Canada Post is reimagined and in a way that can leave behind the old colonial system. Yes, we are aiming for Canada Post to retrofit its operations and large fleet, but part of what we coordinators are doing is continuously lobbying members of Parliament and government to not only direct Canada Post to change, but to offer the necessary capital to get this transition happening correctly so that the public and Crown corporations like our post office can pursue environmentally sustainable options while protecting people's jobs and their livelihoods. We have reached what seems to be a tipping point where energy companies are looking to transition from coal, for example. Vehicle manufacturers are committing to electric vehicles, and many other large corporations are also becoming environmentally conscious. So it is an opportune time for change and to suggest policy alternatives. Overall, we would like to see the post office drive the transition in Canada with its large national fleet while creating new equitable services for all communities. So we at CUPW are certainly aware of the sway our government has over Canada Post, both good and bad. Because of this, pressure on government is crucial. The Liberal Bill C-12 is nice to see, but it is not good enough. We're pushing for Canada to exceed these goals, and I was disappointed to see the NDP-sponsored Bill C-232, which pushed for better goals to be achieved by 2030, and referenced the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People as a basis, which was voted down. We have a bit of an upward hill to climb here in this province as well, but we have new opportunity to push for new priorities in our provincial government, and I'm excited to help in any way that I can. So we have a website at deliveringcommunitypower.ca, as well as a Twitter and a Facebook account. Anyone here that would like to support this cause, please email me. I will put my email address and phone number in the chat, as well as our 2019 booklet. You will notice our old branding on that. I apologize. As you can see behind me, this is sort of what our new branding looks like. But I can send you a letter of endorsement to send to the Minister in charge of Canada Post and to add your name or group to the list of supporters, which includes the LEAP, ACORN, CPAA, to name a few, as well as over 1,000 municipalities and members of our communities across the country. Please never hesitate to reach out. I'm here for any of you as well to join together in a fight for the better future for all. The time for change is now. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. That's very exciting. I'm going to open it up now to questions specifically for Brahm. So if you have a question, go ahead and if you could you can use the raise your hand button, or if you don't know how to use that, then just unmute yourself. But I will watch the raised hands right now. So go ahead. Well, actually, maybe while people are thinking of questions, I will see if I can think of one that's specifically for you. I guess, when did this initiative begin?
Well, it's been a bit of a, they've put it together since about 2016, when postal banking became first a thing. And, we were fighting a little bit for the Save Door-to-Door campaign when we were going to lose door-to-door delivery and change over to community mailboxes. And so that was sort of the start of but we've been campaigning for many years, even before that, for other reasons. But in 2016, it really started with postal banking. It moved into about 2018, 2019, it became an elections issue. And it's really sort of consolidated into this group, this plan of all-encompassing plan, now relaunched in 2021. But it's always had an environmental push. It's always been the main push behind it has been, greening the fleet and sort of changing Canada Post for the better. And I think I saw Rob had his hand up.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. A great presentation. What a brilliant way to reinvent yourself. And yeah, I understand the struggles with rural Saskatchewan. And yeah, I think this is a brilliant idea. And conceptually, there's even more things that can be part of that. I mean, if we even look at STC being canceled throughout the province, how are we getting stuff to our rural brothers and sisters? So yeah, I'm very pleased that you were here to make a presentation. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, and there's endless opportunities. This is sort of our way to look at some, to provide some solutions rather than just sort of have, say there's problems, but what do we do? Well, there's some solutions here. And, it's a federal thing, but it impacts municipalities the most because, they're the closest to the citizens and offering services. And, the municipalities are another major focus of ours, is to make sure, and a lot of them are so supportive of this because they've lost banks or they've lost whatever it is, like many different services. Rural internet is hugely missing. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And I thank you for your comments, and I'm happy to answer questions if anybody needs. And I will leave my email address so that if anybody does want to get a hold of me afterwards, they can.
I have one more brief question / kind of comment too. Do you feel that during the recent pandemic that we've been in, that this has added, I guess, momentum to the need for this campaign, in the sense that I think it's been like a time to restore the importance of Canada Post. I know, like, when we were in the lockdown, the complete lockdown, those first few months, the only person that was at my front door was the person that was delivering my mail from Canada Post.
Exactly.
So I wonder, has that kind of added to some of the momentum?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, COVID is not something, we want to take advantage of, but it certainly has exposed some of the problems, right? When you talk about the elder check-ins, there's, we all know the horrors of the long-term care homes, and, when the provincial government has dropped the ball in some of these, ways that have put them in danger. And there's real hesitance to want to move out of your home too soon or to go into these areas. And so really with things like check-in services, it's exposed the problem that this can kind of solve. Rural internet, I mean, people are having to spill out of into urban communities all the time. And COVID has created such a barrier to that, and the need to connect with the internet. So, I mean, those are just two examples right off the bat where, we're going to need to have things like this. Will only help what COVID is exposed as an issue, not created, but exposed.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Does anyone else have any questions or comments directly for Brahm on this? You can just go ahead and unmute if you don't know how to do the raised hand.
I think I see Larry's got a hand up there.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Kelly, for connecting us.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
Love the postal workers. Jean-Claude Perrault and everything that the postal workers do. This is sort of a cheap shot, not at you, but also a somewhat significant question.
Mm-hmm.
The NDP in Saskatchewan claims to be pro-union and pro-labor and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, have you met with the NDP in Saskatchewan? And secondly, is there any way you would run for the leadership of the NDP? Because we have a big problem here.
You know what? I've met with the NDP before, so that wouldn't be my first time, and with members from the NDP. I've reached out to them on this campaign really in earnest. Like, we've just gotten out our new, like a new website and all that kind of stuff. So it's really only really taking off now. So what I've done is I've reached out to everybody. I've gotten some responses. I haven't met with them in person to endorse it yet, but that is part of, I'm waiting to connect with them. I don't want to leave any stone unturned in terms of who I speak to, whether it's provincial governments, whether it's MP hopefuls, just because it is a federal, I mean, we need to all be on board with changing this over for the better. So I definitely have connected with some unofficially and waiting to connect with them officially to try and get something out on this. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So does anyone have any direct questions for Brahm before we move over to our more open conversation? Go ahead and unmute if you do. All right, well, I'm just quickly looking at the different speakers to make sure I'm not missing anyone. So thank you so much. It's been really, really great to have you here, and please stay and participate in our conversation, because this is very relevant to what we're discussing. So the next part of our conversation that we're going to be shifting into is really discussing our energy future here, and our response to what do we think about what our political leaders have said or maybe not said in response to the Supreme Court of Canada decision, and what do we think about their climate change plans or maybe lack of plans. So this is an open discussion. I do want to turn the floor over very briefly to Larry to give us a bit of information on the actual case, in case anyone hasn't actually been following it very closely, and then we'll move into more of a roundtable conversation. So first, let's go to Larry.
Okay, I don't know how to share, so I'll let Larissa do it at some point. If you haven't read the decision from the Supreme Court, I've sent out a fact sheet, with quotes from the Supreme Court of Canada majority decision. It was 6 judges to 3 who wrote the decision in favor of everything everybody here stands for. And what's particularly incredible about the decision was written by the Chief Justice, which is not always the case. And it was the facts stuff. Like, there's the legal shit, I'll call it, but there's also the evidence stuff. And the Supreme Court of Canada judges actually opened up their decision with the statement that, quote, climate change is real. And people shouldn't underestimate the significance of the highest court in our country, which is supposedly the rule of law, starting off its decision by saying that, given what happened a week or so before at the Conservative Party convention. They then go on to talk about the fact that it's a crisis, that it's an existential crisis for those who don't like English, and I'm not one of them. That means it's a threat to the future of life on the planet Earth. And the court actually says that. That's what we face. And then they say that it's human caused. Okay? I can't overstate that enough. The debate is over. But what's important is that the Supreme Court points out that those statements, that climate change is real, that it's a threat to the future of existence of life on the planet, and then it's primarily human caused, and that GHG emissions are one of the major causes. The Supreme Court points out that no one disputed that fact. Okay, I keep that in mind. No one disputed that statement. So if you're dealing with, I don't care who, whether it's left, right, or center, or whatever the politics are, including the the Kennys and Moes and Fords and so on in the world. Okay, the Supreme Court said you didn't dispute those facts. So for them to start somehow saying other than that contradicts the position they took in front of the whole world. And I can tell you that groups from all over the world, including the United Nations, were watching that decision because Canada is crucial. The Supreme Court of Canada goes on to say that this existential threat caused by humans is a threat to the culture and sovereignty of Indigenous peoples in Canada. They actually say that's a fact. They talk about the oceans. They talk about the north. And they talk about Saskatchewan and Alberta, about their place and their role in all of this. And they say, again, on the evidence, these are not opinions. And so my quote sheet is quotes about evidence. They say that Saskatchewan is the worst offender in Canada, with Alberta being close behind, second. And they point out that we have a moral and legal obligation to reduce GHG emissions, to stop climate change for everyone. They talk about women, young people. So factually, you can use that decision in any presentation where you think there's going to be people questioning the truth of all of the things that Ada and all of you have been saying, the Fridays for Future have been saying, scientists, activists, unions, most anyways. the Supreme Court of Canada validates everything that you stand for in terms of the evidence of where we're at right now. So I can't overstate the significance, because the other thing that you'll hear is about the rule of law. Okay, well, that's the highest court in our country. And don't forget, they were asked to answer those questions by the Saskatchewan government, by the Ontario government. I mean, they asked the courts to answer them, and they did. So I think it's fair to say that regardless of the political stripes, and I'm including the Saskatchewan NDP here, because the Saskatchewan NDP opposed carbon pricing. They opposed our lawsuit. They opposed at least our arguments, and then misrepresented the truth about carbon pricing in their press releases. The point I'm trying to say, though, is it is the most hopeful thing I've ever read in my history as a lawyer, and I've argued the right to strike case, picketing, secondary picketing, protest, gender, all of those issues, and won them in the courts. But this one here is hope, because it allows all of us to say, okay, now let's do what we have to do and stop all this fighting. So it takes a while for some people who lose to move off, but I think you're seeing movement. So there is a change in direction. Is it quick enough? From some, no. That's why the postal workers program, for example, in terms of the labor movement, is so important for us all to get that out there. Especially, I mean, I don't know if the federal government, given the electric vehicle stuff that they're making available, I don't know if they're now saying to the Postal Workers Union, yes, we're going to electrify the fleet. We're going to make all of the post offices electrical plug-in availability, because they set aside billions for it. And I think it's important to just jump in with our hearts and our minds and say, yes, keep celebrating it, and use the decision to quote and support, like the peat bog stuff, etc. Like, it's all in the decision. It's just beautiful.
Thank you, Larry. Yes, absolutely. I know I've already quoted or cited the decision in at least like 2 academic papers, because it's just so comprehensive. I could look at other sources, but everything's there. And there was one, I remember that, like, reading one sentence in the decision that was talking about how Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta make up 70% of the country's greenhouse gas emissions. And it's just like, that sums it up. But these are the provinces that wanted to oppose this Carbon Pricing Act. So it's, I felt that it was just such a well-written document. So yeah, thank you for being here today. I want to encourage people to continue to, like, you can pose questions to Larry too as we go through our discussion. And I want to open it up now to everyone to make your voice heard about how you think that like I said, our political leaders reacted to this decision and the decision itself, and what you want to see our energy future be like. So to do this, so that everyone has the ability to be heard, I'm just going to switch it on my screen to gallery view so I can see everyone. So you can either raise your hand physically, or so I can see you, or there is a raise hand button if you are not using your camera, or if you prefer to do it that way. If you click on participants, then you should have an option to raise your hand. You should be able to see when you do that, that there's a little button that asks you to raise your hand, or sometimes it's in the reaction one. So hopefully that works. And if there's for some reason you can't do either, then just unmute and we'll make sure that you get a chance to say something. So try to keep your comments and questions brief so that we all kind of get a chance to really discuss. So who would like to go first? I can certainly keep it. Miriam, okay, great.
Yeah, but I think that ties right back to the question of peat mining in Northern Saskatchewan. I mean, there's this huge carbon sink that we're destroying in the north, and meanwhile in the south they're building carbon capture facilities. So that already doesn't make any sense, because the carbon capture facilities cannot capture as much carbon as the natural resources do in the north. And my other worry is how is the government responding to that? They already came out with a carbon offset program where industries now have to buy carbon credits and from organizations that are deemed to be carbon friendly, and it almost seems like a shuffling around of monies and making a new industry out of it. And I was really curious what Larry was thinking about that program.
I'm not a scientist. Carbon capture is a bit of a problem. I'll put it that way. The technology and the cost and so on. There is, however, I mean, in terms of the peat mining, I mean, there's a growing movement around the world that are using the courts to sue governments and corporations for not doing enough or for contributing to climate change. And groups are exploring all of those options. There's no question about the science around the peat. And I would just encourage you to, like, there's groups like Eco-Justice, Environmental Law, West Coast, East Coast. I would encourage you to get in touch with them and see if they'd be interested in sort of lawsuits to protect. I know in Northern Saskatchewan, I mean, and there's indigenous lawyers and indigenous groups who are using the courts as well to protect the land, like the boreal forest, lakes, waters, I mean, rivers, and so on. So it's a way to put pressure on. And those groups everybody's sort of starting to look at that. And I would just encourage you to keep going in the direction you are. There is people in the Enviro Collective network on the discussion forum page who are lawyers with those groups and leaders in the Indigenous community. And so I would encourage you to post a question like that in the discussion forum. A friend of mine who is an Indigenous lawyer quit practicing because of all kinds of things and went to live with her family up in the natural traditional way, just accepted a position with West Coast environmental laws. So, and there's Patrick Canning, there's a whole bunch of them who are part of the discussion forum page. So I would put your question onto the Enviro discussion forum page and actually say, are there any Indigenous leaders or any lawyers or environmental groups that are interested in, you know, working with you on some kind of legal challenge. I'd say that to everybody that's on the call.
Yes, thank you, Larry. That's very important for us all to know. And I think we all learned very much from you that we should actually be turning to the courts, but that this is something that we can do, and that you've shown us is possible. So absolutely. I have actually a question for Ada, if you're still there. What was your reaction to the provincial government, to the Sask Party government's this announcement on the electric vehicle charge?
It was kind of like a sense of, oh, of course they did that. Like we'd gotten the carbon tax approved, and then they were like, oh, now we're taxing electric vehicles as well. It was something everyone that I at least thought I should have expected, but I just didn't.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was, I was like initially surprised, but at the same time I was like not surprised. So yeah, definitely. Let's see, does anyone else have something that they're burning to say right now? You can just go ahead and unmute and chime in.
Yeah, I'd first like to thank Ada and Brahm and Larry for their presentations. Really, really helpful. I have, however, some concerns about the push for electric vehicles. And I'm not talking about ones for the public, I mean, for public service like buses or for postal worker work, but rather the private electric vehicle. I mean, for starters, electric vehicles use immense amounts of raw material, which require a massive escalation of mining, which is a carbon-intensive industry. And they also depend on electricity, which is often produced by carbon-intensive sources of energy. But more crucially, perhaps from my point of view, the private automobile has created an enormous number of problems in our city, including traffic congestion, spatial inefficiency, racial segregation, worsening inequality, unsafe streets with ever increasing deadly traffic accidents. And I've taken most, I don't know, are any of you familiar with James Wilt's book? James Wilt lives in Winnipeg, and he's written this amazing book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Cars? And it really is an amazing analysis of what the electric car, well, would continue to do to our cities. I mean, it might not in the end be as polluting, but it would still cause all of these other problems in the city, so that maybe what we need to be pushing for is, you know, better public transit. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Florence. Does anyone else want to chime in on that same note? I certainly can, but I'd rather other people speak. I think Marv is perhaps just connecting. I know myself, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You should be on. Hi, it's not Susan, it's Mark. The electric vehicles, that's interesting. Some of the points that Florence brought up there. I have an electric vehicle, and I'm not quite sensing what the issues that I believe it was Florence was bringing up there. There's so many articles that are kind of, I guess, sometimes contradictory, but basically it seems like there's a lot of people on the, coal and carbon side that are against EVs. And So there's a lot of statements that come out, and sometimes a lot of it negative. So I'm a member of the Sask EV organization, and over we disprove or have the science based on the electric vehicles showing how they do help the environment, how clean they are. Basically, driving one, and trust me, I've still got my old 71 Cutlass convertible, so I'm not giving that one up. And that's a nice vehicle. But when you start driving an EV vehicle, and most surveys, people will never go back to a nice vehicle. It's that most people don't even know what the options are. When I can plug in my car at home and never have to go to a service station and wait in line for gas or things like that, or spend the money for gas, it's just amazing feeling. It's a sense of freedom. It's almost like when I drive, I'm driving for free compared to taking a gas-powered vehicle. The difference is just kind of, you have to experience it. In the EV world, we talk about an EV smile. And every time you step on the accelerator, not the gas pedal, you just experience that. It's amazing. But you can't talk to people who have their minds kind of still set that ICE vehicles are the only way to go. The one thing that Larry mentioned about the court decision here, and I was going to ask, is it not almost illegal then that we continue to subsidize the oil and gas industry to the point of $3.3 billion a year? Like with a court decision like this, Supreme Court, shouldn't that be illegal for governments to actually still continue to subsidize the gas industry?
I see Larry nodding his head. I know Carla and Ada both have their hands raised. Larry, do you have a quick response to that, or do you want to wait until after Carla and Ada? You can go ahead.
Totally, yes. People are filing lawsuits against those companies around the world. And there's a decision from Ontario where the court has allowed, and from Quebec as well, have allowed you to sue governments for contributing to climate change emissions, which includes through taxes, donations, outright gifts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the answer is totally yes.
Thank you, Larry. And thank you, Mark, for that question. That's a really important question, and for sharing your positive experiences too. I want to go to Carla next. I know she's had her hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe, and maybe it should actually be Florence who responds, but I guess in my view, it's not that I'm against EVs at all. In fact, I wanted a Tesla Roadster S for I don't know how long. Not that I'm going to be able to buy one anytime soon. So instead I got the most fuel efficient tiny car and barely drive it ever. That being said, I think where some people are finding the problem isn't so much with EVs themselves, and it is, but it's replacing one single car vehicle or like one single vehicle with another single vehicle, as opposed to more efficient modes of transportation, such as public transit and things that are more accessible to everybody. Not everybody is able to own any kind of car. So I think making cities and communities more walkable, or making options for people to travel and commute in different ways, or maybe be able to work from home and stuff. It's a more holistic thing. So yes, EVs, but I don't think we should all get an EV. I don't think we should all have a single vehicle. Not that I don't have one. It's just thinking an even bigger picture. And when you look into things like the mining that's done to get lithium for the batteries, that's actually quite damaging. So anytime we're all accumulating our own, whatever it is, our own vehicle, our own big giant house, or whatever, we're using more and more resources. And I think, you know, that might be part of it.
Yeah, there's lots of talk about that, but those same resources are still in our iPhone batteries and all the other computer equipment we have. The silicone chips, they're not the cleanest industry, but as soon as an electric vehicle comes out, then we draw attention to all these things. But these things have been out there for years. Lithium didn't just start with an EV car. As a matter of fact, they're trying to change that. Cobalt was bad. They're trying to change to nickel. Graphite's coming on stream. So there's a lot of changes in the industry. It's no different than the cars. They've evolved so much over the years. And it was a government mandate to actually have the car companies actually make the cars, the ICE vehicles, more efficient. It was mandated that they had to meet across the fleet 30, 40 miles to the gallon, right? Industry wouldn't have done that by itself. So there's lots of things that will evolve, both with the ICE vehicles, they're much more efficient. But one thing we will all recognize, when we all stayed home, look how the environment changed. So if you don't, and these are modern cars, these are computer efficient cars, but when we took the cars off the road, look how the environment cleaned up. A ICE vehicle does not put out emissions. So even if you took 1-to-1, an ICE vehicle compared over the EV over the ICE vehicle, and there was no emissions coming out, it would still make the environment cleaner, would it not?
Yeah, yes. And so I think let's go to Ada next. She's got her hand up. So.
I think it's really about shifting the discussion from electric vehicles onto like active modes of transportation, like walking and biking. I understand that not everyone can do those all the time, and so having buses that go everywhere is important. And for people who like really can't use public transit or can't get around in an active mode, having an EV would be really useful. But the truth is that cars just fill the streets, and there's not really a lot we can do to get around that. And so it's it makes it safer if there are less cars, just in general.
So you're more against just getting the cars off the streets. Actually, there's big movements. We were over in Spain and things like that. There's a lot of cities that don't want any cars in their downtown corridors.
And I want to make sure that thank you so much for your comments, Barbara. I want to make sure that we give other people a chance to bring their burning questions. But into that last comment, when I did my like honors paper, which was back in 2016, I did some research on Europe and like with transportation policies. And the term, which I think you were just speaking about, which sums it up so greatly, is peak car. And that was this trend that was happening in Europe where there were more people who were not getting their driver's license when they came of age than those who were, because the society had evolved to a point where it wasn't about getting that individual car, but rather about having systems to get around that are for everybody. And I also wanted to briefly comment on some of the work we've been doing lately with Regina Energy Transition, which is a new coalition that we've brought together where people can come aboard and start talking about making this positive energy transition and really support Regina City Council to make these changes. And we had a few meetings and where people could come and we debated some policy ideas to offer the city of Regina 4 concrete policy suggestions that they could use to implement their renewable Regina strategy, this 100% renewables motion that was passed unanimously by City Council in 2018, but has yet to be actually acted on. So after the meetings, we came up with these 4 great policies, and they relate to this discussion. The first policy was fare free transit. So just first off, making public transit phased in, fare free transit. So making it in a phased in way free so that people can actually get around the city, including those who can't afford a bus pass or the bus fare. The next policy that that we are suggesting to City Council is the to implement a PACE program, or what Saskatoon calls a home energy loan program, where the loan to actually install renewable energy on one's home is tied to your property taxes and your property itself, rather than actually having to come up with that capital up front. The next policy went back to the electric vehicle side, and that was to embrace implement an electric vehicle bus strategy. And that is really getting at like this idea of, and the city fleet too, to also help educate the public about electric vehicles and about the need for electric vehicles to be our city's choice of vehicles and our buses as well. And then the fourth policy was to look at doing some incentives for landlords to be making energy efficiency upgrades on their energy retrofits on their properties, so that their tenants' energy bills are reduced and that their quality of life is improved. So I just wanted to let people know that those are the four policies we decided on as this loose coalition, and we're continuing to work on that. So, so yeah, it's exciting stuff. But let's continue this discussion, and thank you for everyone's great comments so far. I see Russell has his hand raised, so let's go to you, Russell.
So yeah, just a quick question, or a quick comment and then a question. Just wanted to say thank you to all the speakers tonight. It's really just great to see the work that everybody's doing, and so important that it's done. And I don't think that gets enough gratitude. And so Larry, I wanted to ask, I'd heard a couple years ago that you were involved with a court case involving youth challenging the government to sort of do what they're responsible to do on climate change. And I was wondering if there's any update on where that's at these days.
There's a number of lawyers, including myself, who are interested in taking the government to court provincially in Saskatchewan, and we're still talking. We have this, because of COVID, the courts are sort of not super active, if you know what I mean. But we are interested if there are people who are willing to put their names in a lawsuit against the provincial government, saying you're not doing enough and we want you to do more, and some of the things you're doing are jeopardizing our lives. We posted on Facebook on the discussion forum the decision from Ontario, and there's a group of lawyers called the Saskatchewan Association of Environmental Lawyers. It's a relatively new young group, but they have a Facebook page, and they do have a summary. And the summary of that decision in Ontario was posted on Facebook and on my Facebook page. And I would encourage you to read their analysis of it. So there's a lot of people who are qualified, and we're looking at doing that. We just need groups and organizations, and it doesn't have to be young people. It can include young people, because I mean, it affects everybody. So parents are, you have an interest, just citizens. You have the right to expect that your right to life will be protected. And we've done summaries of it and our arguments. So it's mostly just a matter of getting people together who are willing to put their names on such a document and then go to court. I mean, I've tried posting it on my Facebook page, the decision, the summary. It's been posted on the Enviro discussion forum page as well. But for some reason, people, I've been saying this, like you said, for 2 years. I've been saying this for actually 7. We filed in New Brunswick on Section 7 of the Charter. There just has been a hesitancy for groups for some reason to promote using the Charter and international law. And we're hoping that, I mean, there's a Quebec, it's called Jeunesse Environnement. They went to court, and there's a group in Quebec or Ontario that did. And in both of those cases, the courts have said, yes, you have the right to sue governments for contributing to climate change and potentially for not doing enough proactively to stop it. So it's still there.
Thanks, Larry. And thanks, Russell. That was a really important question. So I also know that Ken had his hand up, so we'll go next to Ken.
You thought it was me?
Well, sorry, that was, I had another person say that did I, okay, maybe it wasn't, sorry.
Sorry, Ken, I thought you had your hand up, so I just let her know, so.
Well, okay, then we'll, my mistake too. Okay, so who would like to weigh in next? There's a couple of things we haven't really discussed with about this yet, so I can give us some topics, but does anyone have anything at the top of their mind right now? Sheila, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Well, I think anything that any of us can do to encourage City Council with initiatives to make the core area of the city more population dense. Where I live, I can walk to 2 grocery stores, a drugstore, the public library. I really could get along without a car. And it's because I live in the close to the center of the city. And yet the city keeps going way, way out, and we need more schools and more buses to service the outlying areas. And we're just too spread out.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a car. I've never actually had a car, and I've never been a driver. So and I made that decision quite consciously because I want to understand how hard it is to get around. And it's been something that I've had a lot of criticism in my life for making that decision. But what I've learned from it is that the city doesn't function in the way that it should. It's not a city that's built for people. It is a city that's built for cars. And that's something that that does need to be addressed. And it's certainly like I really like electric vehicles too. They are the way of the future, and that is really important. So when we're talking about shifting to these different modes of transportation, it's about both. It's about electrifying our vehicle fleet, but it's also about having it made in a way that we can get around without a vehicle too. So go ahead.
And especially if all construction had to put a solar panel or 18 solar panels on the roof. If we started facing our houses in a way so that we could use the orientation of the house for solar panels, the electric vehicles, you could generate your own energy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Paul, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hey, Sheila, are you in Regina? Cool.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so just something I wanted to give everybody a heads up about, and just because it's related directly to what you were just talking about. At Operations Committee this week, I think it was, they considered a thing called an intensification discussion paper. And it's about coming up with incentives for making the center of Regina more dense, specifically Cathedral, Heritage, Downtown, and North Central. One of the things that happened at the tail end of the last council is that they instituted an intensification levy. So it used to be that Greenfield had to pay they had to pay the city money to cover the cost of the infrastructure that's built there, not to maintain it, but to build it. And it's debatable whether or not they were paying enough for how much, you know, exurbs and suburbs cost the city. But if you built within the city, like in the core parts, you didn't pay that levy. They instituted that, I think it was last year, it might've been 2018. So that is a considerable obstacle for people who want to build denser housing downtown, Cathedral, etc. So this paper basically starts to contemplate, okay, are there ways we could rebate that intensification levy if you build, you know, a development that fits our development goals? So I just wanted to point, that'll be coming to the next council meeting, I believe. It's something to watch out for. There won't be any decisions made, but this is like the first step towards a discussion about what we want to see with intensification. It's really frustrating because infill and intensification and making the city more dense, they've been talking about this for a decade and have done dick all about it. And this is like, you know, 10 years after they first started talking about it, they finally have a discussion paper on the subject. But anything we can do to sort of encourage council to take that paper seriously, because we have a few councillors now, like Brashani, who is not in favor of density. She wants to go backwards on that. So we need to make sure that, you know, council knows that there's a critical mass of people who want to see a more sort of livable city and a more walkable and bikeable and, you know, communal city. So anyways, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Paul. That's really important to know. And Amy, I saw you had your hand up.
Thanks. I don't know if Russell had his up before. I've put mine up a bit, but Russell, do you want to go ahead?
You go ahead, Amy.
Okay. I know we kind of are going back and forth between a few different things here, and I apologize for going back to electricity and electric vehicles, but I do have a car, and when I need to replace it, I would definitely want something electric if possible. But I do want to know what we're doing about the fact that most of our electricity in this province is still greenhouse gas emitting. And in fact, I'll just, because I'm able to quickly share my screen. I was researching this for a blog post I was writing. If you look at the Saskatchewan energy profile, there's a chart here which shows that you know, almost all of our electricity is being generated from gas, coal, coke, petroleum a bit. So I know we're talking about becoming a renewable city by 2050 or hopefully sooner than that, and I'm all in favor of reducing pollution. I agree there's huge health effects of combustion engines, and I'm not against electric vehicles. And I don't either don't want to derail us and get us into a big debate, but I just wanted to know, is this not something that we're also considering? And if it's come up and I missed it, I'm sorry, I'm multitasking.
No, thank you, Amy. That's really important to raise that question. And I'm going to go to Russell and then Rob, and then we'll come back to that too. So go ahead, Russell.
Sheila had mentioned orientation for solar panels, and it just sort of reminded me that, yeah, we can build houses, and we have them here in Saskatchewan, where just based on orientation and how they're designed, insulated windows, yeah, the passive house design, so that houses are heated without any natural gas, with just the passive energy of the sun coming in through the windows. And it's, I know there are companies, small companies here in Saskatchewan that are working on that, and that there are some examples of this being successfully done in Saskatchewan, but it just seems insane that when we're able to do this, we are not doing this given the situation that we're in. So yeah, just deserves attention, I think.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you very much, Russell, for that. And next we'll go over to Rob.
Hey, listen, I appreciate everybody's points. And one of the things, I used to be on council in the 90s, and one of our dilemmas at that time was developers wanting to build high density at the edge of town. So when you look at these new subdivisions, you have these huge apartment high density. And of course, then we have transit becomes inefficient. Density should have been downtown. And I tell you, our biggest problem was fighting with developers because they actually ruled council back in those days. And so I'm glad that we're doing something different. Russell, just to add on about passive housing, it's not a big fact, but we have a straw bale house built in this city, and we also have a straw bale commercial building, which is the Circle Project Daycare on 5th Avenue and Pasqua, was done in straw bale. And then there was a house at Gabriel Housing put together. And so maybe as Enviro Collective, we need to do a follow-up on that and do some exposés to show what those results are, 10, 15 years later. Anyways, that's my 2 points.
Thanks, Rob. And I'm going to just quickly comment on Amy's comments about where our electricity in this province comes from. And then others, of course, are welcome to, you can interrupt me. But a lot of what Sask Power is looking at right now is under federal legislation by 2030, they have to shut down the coal plants or switch to carbon capture and storage. And now natural gas is also subject to that same carbon pricing, and into also looking at they have natural gas also cannot operate without carbon capture and storage too, because natural gas is it's still not fossil fuel free, it's not emission free. So that's it's something that Sask Power is struggling to figure out, and part of the response from the Sask Party in regard to the carbon pricing case decision was was looking at and what Sask Power is looking at too is the possibility of using small modular nuclear reactors to replace some of the coal plants. That's a very far off decision, but it's something that is very actively in the media. And I know that we are planning in the future to have a general meeting where it can be a discussion about that, and we have speakers here who can answer questions. So just to kind of raise everyone's radar about that coming up in the future. But yeah, it's really, really important. So Amy, do you want to say something additional to that?
No, I mean, I'm glad. I know we've talked as a board about having a meeting where we focus on that issue, small nuclear reactors, if that's, yeah. I'm quite ignorant, but I'm very interested in knowing what we're going to do about this problem. So yeah, I just wanted to raise it as an issue, and I'm afraid I have to run. My son's been patiently waiting for me to go watch a show. But thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. And I hope that as a co-host, if I leave, I don't kick you all out. I shouldn't, right? Okay, good.
Should be fine.
Okay.
It's all good.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. And yes, we'll keep discussing for, I don't want us to go past 9 o'clock. I want us to have a hard stop at 9. So if you are getting worn out, then please feel free to unmute and just say your goodbyes. But we will keep discussing for a few more minutes. So who would like to go next? Can either, once again, just raise your hand or unmute. Okay, well, I can get us started with a little bit of a conversation poker too. And thank you, Kelly, for joining us. So one of the other things that I think came out of this, it's good to see you, Kelly. Bye, and to your little one. One of the other things that came out of this decision, the reactions to it from both Premier Moe and from Ryan Miley, was something that I felt was really disappointing. There was one line in the media where Ryan Miley actually said that the carbon price was taking more away from Saskatchewan families than it was returning. That is not true. It is a lie. And that was really disappointing. And of course, Scott Moe's reaction was how can we get out of it? Where our reaction to it is going to be, what can we do to not have to pay the carbon price? And I felt between the two reactions that as somebody from Saskatchewan, there's this, I guess, conception maybe nationally that everyone in Saskatchewan was against the decision, was unhappy about it. But to me, it was a day of celebration. So What do others think about the lack of political leadership that we've seen? Go ahead, Ada.
It's really disappointing. We've got two major parties in our province, and neither of them really seem to see climate as a priority, which is really disappointing. And I had high hopes for the NDP, and which sounds really weird coming from a 14-year-old, but you know, and it's just it's really disappointing.
Yes, well, like, and Ryan Miley wrote a book about connecting the environment, the health of our environment to the health of our society, and was this climate leader before getting elected. So I also had high hopes, and I didn't think it sounded weird at all. I thought it sounded perfect and honest, and I think that's like how I'm feeling too. So yeah, completely agree. Others, what do you want to weigh in as well? Go ahead, Larry.
Just a question, suggestion, well stated, Ada. I would encourage Fridays for Future and Youth to politely request an urgent meeting with the leader of the NDP. And say what you have to say. I really do think that is an important thing for you to say and for them to hear. I mean, there are people inside that I think would like to hear that too. Like, I won't name them all here on the screen, but I would encourage you to do that. Same thing with, I mean, if you remember, you invited the environment minister to one of the Fridays for Future rallies, and he actually came. And I think that was a highlight for a lot of us to see him actually standing on the steps of the legislature, acknowledging what you were doing. And he seemed to be open to what you were saying. Now, so, you know, I would make that request and encourage it to be sort of a Zoom kind of meeting where young people, you know, like the group of you sort of ask him all the questions and put that on the record that you want a meeting with not just the leader of the NDP, but you want a meeting with the premier and his minister.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Do you want to go ahead, Ada? I want to, oh, so you're good, okay. In the last couple of minutes that we have here, I want to, like, our discussion has been great. Like, thank you so much to everyone for your comments, but I want us to spend the very last few minutes imagining the positives. What do we want to see? Forget about our political leaders for a second. Forget about the naysayers, the people spreading misinformation who are, you know, like not wanting things to change. And forget about all of that and just think about, what do we want to see? What makes us excited about our future and our energy future in particular? And going back to that kind of that one word, for me, it's the idea that we have so many options here in Saskatchewan, and that we are able to really address some of the inequities that we have in this province through this transition. It's not every day that we get to reinvent an energy system. It's once in a, and it's in a very, these are very path dependent systems that were designed a long time ago, and they're all having to change. So for me, it's that idea that like, this is a big change that doesn't happen very often in policy, where things happen so slowly. So others, feel free to jump in. Carla, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm in an environmental geology 100 class, and my professor is Janice Dale. She's amazing. She was running focus groups because, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but at the U of R, they've got one well dug already for geothermal, and they would just need a second well to have geothermal heating in most of the university. I'm not sure if they could also produce power as well, but that could be huge for greening the university. They had started building it when the prices of heating had kind of gone through the roof, and then the prices dropped again and they abandoned the project. Now, of course, with COVID, I'm not sure what the financial thing is, but with a new president at the university and people pushing to go green, this is something that we could really support. She's retiring, but this is kind of like what she wants to be is her swan song, and it sounded excellent. As a side note, one of her grad students is working on the SM, like the small nuclear reactor project, but there's also another geothermal project somewhere kind of around Estevan that's like a really deep geothermal that I think they're going to start working on. So there are a number of different options, and in a lot of places in southern Saskatchewan we actually can do a variety of geothermal too. Of course, it really depends, very location dependent, but you know, there are some options, and it was really great to hear her talk about that. And that's probably why I went on my little tangent about resources, is because we learned a lot about mining, and you really get to the point where you're like, literally every single thing I do has a pretty big impact. So it just kind of put it into perspective, but I thought that might not be something you guys are aware of, and I just lucked out and got in a focus group for an extra 1% about this. What did I know about geothermal? And it was really interesting to hear people's feedback about these sorts of things. And it was interesting to hear other students be really pro-nuclear. And I was like, huh, interesting, because that's not my stance, but yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Carla. Yes, that's really exciting work, the geothermal that's happening here. Miriam.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. And I think, you know, I really appreciate Larry in this discussion here and talking about accountability, but like also listening to many Indigenous elders, that they say climate change is not happening out there, it is happening in us. We are the cause. And I think that would be my wish for the futures. And I really appreciate Ada in this discussion, and Carla, who says, yes, electric vehicles are all great, but we just have to reduce and our own footprint and change that. And political leaders will change if we change. And I think there is a lot of power in doing small things in yourself or in small community circles that cannot be stressed out often enough. That, you know, it really, it's about sacrifices as well. Like, what really can we do without, and what can we give up? And it's not about replacing what we have with just an alternative kind of energy. It is about saying, what can we do without?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Miriam. Yes, that sums it up so nicely. Brahm, did I see your hand up?
No, but I guess I could just use this moment just to say one quick thing. I guess for the future, I mean, I'm a big fan of proactive governance, and we don't see it enough. And I really, one of the things I'm excited the most, I'm happiest about, or most excited about, is, you know, if we succeed with stuff like this, is the more equitable distribution, and the you know, subjects that we talked about, you know, cars and certain things not being accessible to some of the different populations, and how our talks lead to, you know, creating new services, new things that are towards, you know, helping these individuals out who don't normally have access to services. And so I really think that, to me, is the biggest prospect for this, is how we can really have everybody, you know, help through this transition as well, and not only out of, you know, fossil fuel, but into a more distributive and equitable, you know, society. I think is the best prospect for me.
Thank you. Absolutely. And Larry, I see you have your hand up too.
Real quick, Carla and everybody, that geothermal project in Estevan is already going ahead. It's now going to be expanded so that they can provide power to 20,000 homes. The jobs are going to Saskatchewan unionized workers that used to work in the oil fields. And just for the record, for some reason, it's not being reported this way by the media, but the money, the main financial contribution to that company to drill that geothermal well came from the federal government from the carbon pricing as a rebate. And I don't understand why nobody's mentioning that. But that's an example of infrastructure and alternative energy that's being funded from the carbon pricing. It actually, in the press conference and the media reports, the company said, you know, that financial help that we got was refreshing and helpful. We couldn't have done it without it, but they never mentioned where it was from. So, you know, Carla, and just like, it's really important that we be vigilant about reporting the truth about stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Larry. That's, yeah. I mean, you're saying it, which, you know, so someone's saying it. Thank you. I want to thank once again, like all of our speakers for, Brahm, thank you for being here today to tell us about your campaign and the campaign that's happening, and stressing how this is a chance to really address the equity issues and support a more just transition forward. Thank you for being here today. And Miriam, thank you for educating us on, I think, did Miriam have to go? Oh, there she is, looking at my little Zoom windows. Thank you for educating us today on the importance of making sure that we ask for soil without peat moss and go towards alternatives. I really didn't know, and it's been something that, like, this is the power of information and knowledge. So thank you for that. Ada, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing with us your wisdom. You are so wise beyond your years, and we are very lucky to have you as a climate leader in this province. So thank you for joining us today. And to everyone that's been here, Larry, thank you as always for being part of our board, for being a climate justice leader in our country. Thanks for your work, and it is a celebration, the decision. So Larry Newfield, I see you joined us at the very tail end. I promised everyone we would have a hard stop on our meeting at 9 p.m. We've been going strong since 7 p.m. and I'm sure we're all starting to get a little bit tired. But thank you for joining us. And we did actually record this meeting. So if you would like me to send you a recording, just drop me a message on Facebook or whatever, and I will get it to you. So on that note, Rob, just to finish our meeting up, Rob was dropping some messages in the chat about the Climate Hub, and I want to give him the last word of our meeting to talk about that. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Climate Reality Canada is looking for mentors across Canada. And what it is, it's part of the Al Gore movement. They are mentors to us, and I think they're looking for a regional coordinator. So I've posted the job descriptions on there. By all means, it's a great position, and you get to work with amazing people like we had tonight at our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And to everyone here tonight too, this is Earth Day. And while every day is Earth Day, we really need to celebrate that we have been continuing to work on climate change activism throughout the past year. And by next year, we, fingers crossed, we will be able to do this in person. And that will be incredible. So, but I want to really, like, we all need to give ourselves a pat on the back that we are still getting together. We're still working on initiatives, developing initiatives, and imagining a better future. And that is something that is very, very powerful. So I have so much hope for going forward. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's meeting and that we can see you again next month. I believe our general meetings will be on the 4th Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. So stay tuned. And on that note, goodbye, everyone. Happy Earth Day. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
See you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hosting, Larissa.
Thank you.